So there I was, fresh out of the academy, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, ready to take on the world and make it a safer place. My first month on the job had been relatively uneventful, mostly traffic stops, a couple of noise complaints, and the occasional domestic dispute. But then came the call that would forever redefine my understanding of human stupidity. It was a slow Tuesday afternoon when we got a call about a disturbance at the local Walmart. Now, Walmart is a breeding ground for all sorts of bizarre behavior, but nothing could have prepared me for what I was about to witness. My partner and I rolled up to the scene, and as we walked through the sliding doors, we were greeted by the sight of a middle-aged man in nothing but his underwear, standing atop a shopping cart and singing Bohemian Rhapsody at the top of his lungs. His rendition was, let's say, unique. Imagine Freddie Mercury with a head cold and a penchant for overacting. We approached cautious, not wanting to startle. "Sir," I called out, "I'm going to need you to come down from there." He stopped mid-chorus and looked at us like we were the crazy ones. "Officer," he said, "I'm performing for my fans." He gestured to a group of bewildered shoppers who were clearly trying to decide whether to call for help or get his autograph. I glanced at my partner, who shrugged. "Sir, I'm afraid we're going to have to ask you to come with us," I said as diplomatically as I could. "On what grounds?" he demanded, hands on hips like a discount superhero. "Indecent exposure for starters," my partner replied, trying to keep a straight face. He sighed dramatically but complied, climbing down from his makeshift. As we escorted him to the squad car, he began to regale us with his life story. Apparently, he was convinced he was the reincarnation of Freddie Mercury and was destined to revive Queen's glory days, starting with a surprise performance in Walmart. Natch. The booking process was equally surreal. Our guy insisted on serenading the entire precinct, much to the amusement of everyone present. As I filled out the paperwork, I couldn't help but think about the absurdity of it all. Here I was, a newly minted cop, and my first arrest was a half-naked Freddie Mercury impersonator disrupting a Walmart. As I sat there, filling out the paperwork, my mind wandered back to the moment we first saw him. The sheer audacity of his performance, the confidence in his voice, and the complete lack of awareness of his surroundings. It was a scene straight out of a sitcom. I couldn't help but chuckle at the thought of it. A few days later, I was back at Walmart for another call. This time it was a shoplifting incident. As I was walking through the aisles, I couldn't help but think about Freddie Mercury 2.0. I asked one of the employees if they had seen him again. They laughed and said, "Oh, you mean Randy? Yeah, he's a regular here, always causing some kind of scene." Randy, of course, his name was Randy. It seemed fitting. I asked them to tell me more about him. Apparently, Randy was a local legend. He was known for his eccentric behavior and his love for Queen. This wasn't the first time he had been arrested for public disturbances, and it likely wouldn't be the last. The more I learned about Randy, the more I realized that his antics were a coping mechanism. He had a rough life, lost his job, his family, and his home. Singing and performing were his way of escaping reality, even if just for a moment. It was his way of holding onto a piece of his former self. A couple of weeks later, I was on patrol when I got another call about Randy. This time, he was performing in the park. My partner and I headed over, not sure what to do. As we pulled up, we saw Randy on a makeshift stage, dressed in a makeshift Freddie Mercury outfit, tight jeans, a white tank top, and a fake mustache. He had a small crowd gathered around him, cheering him on. We approached him, and he immediately recognized, "Hey, officers, you came to see my show," he exclaimed, clearly delighted. "Randy, you know you can't do this," I said, trying to keep a stern tone but failing miserably. "Come on, man. I'm not hurting anyone. Just trying to bring a little joy to this dreary world," he replied, a twinkle in his eye. I sighed. "All right, Randy, you've got 10 more minutes. After that, you need to pack it up." He grinned from ear deep. "Thanks, officer. You're a real one." As we watched him perform, I couldn't help but feel a sense of admiration for the guy. Despite everything he had been through, he still found a way to bring a little bit of joy to others, even if it was in the most unconventional way. Those 10 minutes turned into 20, and before we knew it, we were clapping along with the rest of the crowd. Randy may have been a bit of a nuisance, but he had a way of bringing people together. As we finally told him it was time to go, he gave us a salute and said, "Until next time, officers." Over the next few months, we had several more run-ins with Randy. Each time, it was the same story, public disturbances, singing Queen songs, and always in some state of undress. But each time, we couldn't help but feel a little bit of affection. He was like the town's very own Corchester, always finding a way to bring a smile to people's faces, even in the most ridiculous circumstance. One day, we got a call from the local nurse. Apparently, Randy had somehow managed to get himself invited to perform for the residents. When we arrived, we found him in the common room, surrounded by elderly people clapping and singing along to "We Will Rock You." The staff didn't seem too upset about it. In fact, they were joining in the fun. As we approached him, he gave us a sheepish grin. "Hey, officers, just bringing a little joy to the old folk." I looked around at the smiling faces and decided to let it slide. "All right, Randy, just this once, but you need to clear it with the staff next time, okay?" He nodded. "You got it, officer. Thanks for being cool about it." As we left, I couldn't help but think about how far Randy had come. He went from being a public nuisance to a beloved local. His antics may have been ridiculous, but they brought people together in a way that nothing else could. A few months later, we got a letter from Randy. It was written on official-looking stationery with the header, "Freddie Mercury 2.0. In it, he apologized for any inconvenience he had caused and invited us to his next concert at the local community center. He promised there would be actual clothes this time. When the day of the concert arrived, my partner and I decided to go. We figured it would be a good way to show our support and maybe keep an eye on things. To our surprise, the community center was packed. Randy had become a local sensation, and people from all over town had come to see him perform. As he took the stage, dressed in a proper Freddie Mercury outfit this time, the crowd erupted in applause. He launched into Bohemian Rhapsody, and for a moment, it felt like we were at a real Queen concert. The energy in the room was electric, and you could see the joy on everyone's faces. After the concert, Randy came up to us and gave us a big hug. "Thank you, officers. I couldn't have done this without you." I smiled and shook my head. "No, Randy, thank you. You've brought a lot of joy to this town." As we watched him mingle with the crowd, I couldn't help but reflect on how a simple call to Walmart had led to all of it. Sometimes, the most ridiculous situations can also be the most memorable. As cops, we deal with the worst of humanity, but it's these bizarre, comical moments that remind us of the lighter side of life. Who knew that a half-naked Freddie Mercury impersonator disrupting a Walmart would become a local hero? It just goes to show that sometimes, the most unexpected people can make the biggest